Because oftentimes you look in veterinary, which is a privately motivated industry, and the quality of care for your dog is often better than the quality of care for your child. And like, that is a huge problem. Like, fundamentally, that's a huge problem. If healthcare is a societal right, how could it possibly be that I can take my pet gecko in, but I can't take my son or daughter in because the front office experience is so disjointed that it just takes that much longer? So you've got this real sort of pros and cons, this contradiction in the space right now, which I think is natural for where the industry is.
Yeah, totally. You briefly touched on your own experience as a clinic owner. Can you tell me your stories as a clinic operator from the very beginning? How did you get into operating a clinic, and how did you? And what are some of the key challenges and opportunities you were going to bring into the industry based on your own experience?
Yeah, so I think my path into clinic leadership was a bit different. So I start in medical device development. So I've worked in healthcare previously. I don't come from a family of doctors. A lot of people who work in healthcare, my parents are doctors, my grandparents were doctors. I had this healthcare incident when I was younger, and they have that deep connection. And I just didn't have that. That wasn't my experience. So I started working in hardware, specifically in laser technology for use of skincare treatment. And we ended up taking that medical hardware and using it in the clinic environment. And so I was working with an organization that built the medical hardware, and then I helped to oversee its use in the clinic and ultimately led that clinic to be successful. And I think pros and cons, right? So because I didn't have that deep patient intimacy and understanding, I was doing a lot of things the first time in a way that I think practitioners who come up through a clinical pathway, they just understand patients in a way that I certainly never did. And so I was always envious of people who just had that bedside manner and that understanding of what makes patients feel this way and that way, and how to manage expectations around the treatment journey. These are things that I was learning for the first time. So definitely some growth areas. The benefits were that there was no playbook, there was no rule book, there was no way to do things. So we had the opportunity, and a lot of the team I was working with came from outside the sector. And so we could rethink how things have always been done, the common sense ways of doing things, which actually make no sense at all. And so we had that opportunity. And I think one of the things that jumped off the page to us very early on was around that front office experience. How do patients get served when they're not physically in front of you? Because when they are physically in front of you, happy days. Healthcare practices, much like we were able to deliver a great experience for them when they were standing in front of us, easy. The people in the clinic are almost intrinsically motivated to deliver that service. It's a big part of why they went into healthcare in the first place. When they walk out the door, totally different animal. And I think there's a lot of white space in the sector to allow practices to deliver that experience that they're really proud of delivering, but just delivering it outside the clinic. And it's actually, for us, we found like the source of all evil is what happens when the practitioner and the patient are separated. It's not what happens when they're together. When practitioner and patient are in the same room, everyone's happy. They're well looked after. Practitioner is motivated and aligned. That's what they signed up to do. But when they're not together, you have poor clinical compliance, people not following up with their aftercare, people not following up on behalf of the clinic. So you have this gradual breakdown. And that's often why healthcare issues go unresolved. And it's often why patients disengage in practices. So I think for the practices that really figure that out, and you can call it loyalty, you can call it retention, you can call it engagement, you can call it communication, you can insert any word you want, but ultimately it's about building this vibrant relationship with the patient when they're not physically there. And that's a really, really hard thing to do as a small practice team, because if you've got 5, 6, 7, 8 treatment rooms, you've got a staff of 25 people, how many relationships can you maintain? There is a ceiling.